On my way to pick up my prenatal report, a runaway truck slammed into me, throwing me to the ground. Before I lost consciousness, I saw my husband, Ethan, rush towards me. I tried my best to crawl towards him too, but he pushed me away, frantically giving CPR to his white moonlight. "Sophia! You can't die, you can't die!" he roared desperately, completely ignoring me lying on the side. When the ambulance came to take me away, he rushed over, still holding Sophia. "Doctor, I'm the pregnant woman's husband in the car. She's totally fine. She's just pretending." It was Sophia in my arms who was hit by the truck. Her condition is far more urgent. Sophia certainly met the criteria for priority rescue. At Ethan's suggestion, I was left at the accident site to wait for the next wave of rescue. Before he left, he glanced at me and said, "Stop pretending. If you've got the guts, just die for real." I was getting ready to go to the hospital to pick up my prenatal report. I texted Ethan, "Can't you really take time off to come back?" My message was left unanswered. I had no choice but to head out and take the bus across the street. At that moment, a runaway truck came barreling toward me. Screams erupted all around me. People were being knocked to the ground. It was terrifying. I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't move. I was frozen on the spot. I watched the truck hurtling toward me. Bang! I was thrown to the ground. A sharp pain shot through my abdomen. Maternal responsibility kept me going. I kept begging the people nearby to save me. But the scene was chaotic. There was a shopping mall nearby, and there were too many people and no way to control the crowd. Before long, I heard someone crying. Through my hazy vision, I saw a familiar license plate. The car had just come up from the mall's underground parking garage. The doors swung open after they witnessed the carnage. "Ethan." I was stunned. Didn't he say he was too busy with work to come? Was this a surprise for me? I reached out my hand to him, enduring the pain, calling his name twice. He was rushing toward me, tears welling up in my eyes. Just as I was about to reach out and hug him, he stopped. He pushed my outstretched hand away. It was as if he couldn't hear my cries. He disregarded his usual obsession with cleanliness. His white trousers hit the ground as he kneeled. He rolled up his sleeves and began giving first aid to the woman who was lying unconscious on the ground. This was the first time I'd seen him in such a panic. Large beads of sweat fell onto the ground, mixing with my blood. He kept murmuring, "Sophia, you can't have anything happen to you. You can't have anything happen to you." "Sophia?" I repeated the name and finally fainted next to him. Before I lost consciousness, he said, "Ellie, I am so done with you. Can you please die somewhere else? Don't affect me rescuing Sophia. Can you stop pretending already?" I wasn't pretending. I had no energy to argue with him. When I regained consciousness, some medical staff were already hooking me up to and for. Looking around the ambulance, I finally felt a bit safe. The doctor did a basic check on my baby. "Don't worry. The baby's tough. There's no major problem for now, but we need to rush to the hospital just in case." I nodded. Just as the medical staff was about to close the ambulance doors, a hand grabbed onto the door. The staff looked at the man. Ethan was holding Sophia, who was barely breathing. "Doctor, I am the pregnant woman's husband. She's completely fine. She's just pretending." It was Sophia who was hit by the truck in my arms. She is in a more critical situation. He pulled out his first aid certificate, demonstrating his expertise. He stated confidently, "If the pregnant woman had a problem, she'd be dead already. If she's fine, she's fine. A little delay won't matter. But Sophia has liver problems. If we delay, she'll die." The doctor urgently did an examination. I gripped the edge of my clothes tightly. Finally, the doctors looked at each other and determined that Sophia was indeed in a more urgent situation. Ethan quickly called people to take me away, and to get Sophia to the hospital first. I was left at the scene under a makeshift tent. Most of the people here had already passed away, and didn't need to be rescued. Ethan looked at me once before leaving and said, "Stop pretending. If you've got the guts, just die for real." Strangely, despite being hit by a truck, I didn't have any visible injuries. Compared to Sophia covered in blood, I did look not that seriously injured. But I felt like I was dying. I wanted to grab his hand, tell him not to leave, and tell him I wasn't pretending. But he never gave me the chance. I felt weak, like I was about to die. A man in a white coat walked over. He touched my stomach and noticed a huge dent that couldn't be fixed. The gray-haired old man became alert immediately. Who decided to leave a pregnant woman with a ruptured uterus here to die? Hurry. Even if there aren't any extra ambulances, spare one. Oh my gosh. A doctor, who heard the voice, came over and screamed when he saw my swollen stomach. Immediately, a group of medical staff were rushing around. The family members of others at the scene also helped to take care of me. Hurry to the mall and get her a delivery kit. Quickly contact her parents and her husband. This can't be delayed. Other ladies, unable to see the buttons on my phone clearly, gave it to a young boy. The boy quickly found the top contact. He repeated in his childlike voice, "Husband." The ladies nodded, saying that was the one, and asked him to call. The second the call connected, the doctors were already performing emergency first aid. I couldn't even cry out in pain. I could only hear my faint, interrupted cries. It's connected, it's connected. When the speakerphone turned on, the ladies were talking all at once. After a moment of silence, Ethan suddenly said sarcastically, "Uterine rupture? Did you check it on the internet to try and fool me? The doctor said that your situation is normal. You're still pretending. I am telling you, Sophia is in the middle of being rescued. If anything happens to Sophia, you'll die with her." Then he hung up. The ladies were all stunned. Tears welled up in my eyes. I was completely helpless. Just as I was being pushed onto the ambulance, I heard a payment notification on my phone. The doctor held it up for me to see. Since I couldn't see clearly, she read out, "Hospital payment for medical expenses, 200,000. This was the dowry my family had given me when I married Ethan. It was meant to pay for my postpartum care at the confinement center. A full 200,000 had been transferred. When I saw my balance was zero, my hands clenched into fists. And Ethan only said casually, "Sophia urgently needs money for rescue. I want her to stay in a private room later, so the cost is higher." I took the money. "Oh, and I gave the jade pendant you bought for the baby to Sophia. It should protect her. You have no objection to that, right?" Message after message, they kept coming even while I was being rushed into surgery. The early signs of a uterine rupture are not always obvious. Plus, the scene was chaotic, so it's understandable if the doctor made an incorrect judgment. The head nurse, who had just learned what happened, snorted. This pregnant woman was the first to be hit. She should have been the first to be rescued. It was her husband who insisted on switching to another patient. "That's her husband." Everyone gasped. A young nurse muttered. But the patient named Sophia and the pregnant woman's husband were wearing matching watches. I had spotted that watch on our wedding anniversary. I showed it to Ethan. He said it was out of stock when he went to buy it. I didn't ask much about it. Turns out he bought it for someone else. I closed my eyes, but the tears wouldn't stop. It looks like this child isn't going to make it. Yeah, it's been in the amniotic fluid for too long. If she had been sent to the hospital sooner, maybe it would have had a chance. When the doctor said that, I desperately wanted to speak and ask them to save the child. But when they took the baby from my womb without a single cry, I knew it was impossible. And my uterus was saved with the help of a few doctors. The surgery ended. In the 2 full hours since then, Ethan had only called me once. When I didn't answer, he replied, "If it's a boy, name him Ethan Sophia. If it's a girl, call her Ethan Muya." I smiled but didn't reply, putting my phone aside. With trembling hands, I signed the consent form. The doctors were still trying to resuscitate my child. In the space for the child's name, without hesitation, I wrote, "Liam." After 3 days, my child survived but suffered some significant side effects. The baby had poor heart and lung functions. I took my child in my arms half a month later. Then I suddenly heard Ethan's voice behind me. "Ellie, why didn't you tell me you were in Sophia's hospital?" "Tell you? If I told you, would you remember?" I walked right past him. He grabbed my shoulder. "Boy or girl?" "Boy." I packed my child's things, ready to leave. He snatched the child from my arms. "The name is Ethan Sophia, right?" I ignored him. He didn't seem to care what name I had picked. He kept calling the baby little Sophia. You can pack up first. I'm taking little Sophia to see Sophia. Oh, and by the way, Sophia's being discharged today. The rental house she was living in is too poor. I booked her a 5-star hotel. It costs 100,000 plus. So, should you cancel your confinement center booking? Cancel it? Ethan, the Shin family is a leading company. You, the manager, can't afford to pay for your wife's confinement. It's ridiculous. Whatever. I finished packing and was about to leave. Ethan, who wasn't used to me not crying, quickly followed me. What kind of temper are you throwing now? You've been in the hospital for half a month. You don't even need to go to a confinement center. Yeah, I didn't want to go anyway. I took my things downstairs. He seemed still angry and said, "Why are you bringing so many things? There's no room in my car. I also need room for Sophia." "I'm not taking your car. Someone's picking me up." As soon as I finished speaking and stepped out of the elevator, Ethan, who was following behind me, froze when he saw who came to pick me up. "You let him pick you up? Do you even consider me your husband? Do you have any shame?" I ignored him. At this point, long fair fingers took the bags from my hands. Liam held the baby with practiced ease. The baby was no longer squirming and crying. Ethan was extremely disturbed by this. "You don't need to take her. I'll take her." Ethan rushed in front of the car. He slammed the car door shut, grabbed my hand and tried to pull me away. I forcefully shook him off, then he questioned me in a low voice. "You asked your first love to come pick you up? What exactly do you mean by this?" I remember asking the exact same question when we were married. Ethan arranged for Sophia to be my bridesmaid. He even messed up my best friend's flight, so that she couldn't arrive on time. I was almost broken when I asked why he had done this. Having your first love as your bridesmaid at your wedding, are you treating me, the bride, seriously? But Ethan's response then was, "Don't be so dirty-minded. Sophia is just here to help." Liam opened the car door. He arranged everything, even putting a baby seat in for me. I looked at Ethan's hateful gaze and said casually, "Your mind is too dirty. Liam is just a friend. He's here to help." With that, I opened the car door, got in with my child and left. He wanted to stop me, but Sophia came running over. "Ethan, why haven't you left yet? Are you waiting for someone?" When Sophia saw me sitting in someone else's car with the baby, she immediately pulled at Ethan and said, "Isn't that Liam? Why is Ellie in her ex-boyfriend's car? She's outrageous." I rolled my eyes at them. Liam then drove off. Ethan could only watch. "Ellie, I booked you a private villa. The environment is really good. You should recover there." "Okay, you're doing your duty as the child's godfather." Liam couldn't help but laugh. Then he looked at me and asked, "What are you planning to do with Ethan?" I shook my head helplessly. Actually, I had wanted a divorce since the first year of our marriage when Ethan spent the night out, accompanying Sophia to a concert. I requested a divorce more than once and entered the lottery system, asking Ethan to go through the procedure with me. I even found out when he would be free. I don't have the martyr mindset of those abused novel heroines. If he doesn't want to be with me, I'm not going to keep trying. But he wouldn't go. And the system only allows 3 lottery entries. If you don't show up 3 times, you get blacklisted. That's how it is. Ethan was also nice to me for a while. He broke contact with Sophia. Then I got pregnant. The divorce was postponed, but I still had the divorce papers at home. He won't get a divorce. He thinks marrying me is humiliating, but divorcing me is even more humiliating. Liam's hand shook. Then he gripped the steering wheel tightly and said, "He enjoys your kindness, but doesn't want to let go of the passion that Sophia gives him." I nodded. It seems men understand men better. He took me home to help me pack. Actually, there isn't much of Ethan's stuff in our house. He's only home for a few months a year. The rest of the time he's either on a business trip or lives at the company. There are only a few clothes in the closet. He never even opened the suits I bought him. They were just left at home gathering dust. I opened the closet and took out the most expensive set of clothes. "This is for you." Liam laughed awkwardly. "It's not like someone didn't want it, so you're just giving it to me, right?" I shook my head. This was a suit I had someone custom make for him before we broke up. I was going to give it to him for his birthday. But before his birthday, I was kidnapped with Ethan. Under threat, something that should not have happened happened. The video was sent to several elders in our families, including my boyfriend, Liam. Liam didn't say anything, but I got pregnant that time. Then I miscarried. I always thought that it was the end of the road with Liam. After I broke up with Liam, the E and Shun families forced us into marriage to save the family's faces. I told Ethan he didn't have to marry me. He could elope with the person he loved. I would help them. But he insisted he had been in love with me for a long time. He said he wanted to marry me. That's why I agreed. But from the wedding, he was targeting me everywhere. He used Sophia as my bridesmaid. He put photos of him and Sophia on the wedding bed. I remembered one thing he said. You have your unforgettable first love. I have mine too. If it wasn't for that accident, you wouldn't have chosen me, and neither would I have chosen you. Looking back, Ethan is a psychopath. I told him he could leave, but he refused. I bought it specifically for you. Cost me a lot of money. Since you're here today, it's yours. Of course, you don't have to take it. Liam took it immediately and smiled. I want it. Just then, the door beeped as the code was entered. Ethan came in calling my name. Ellie? Ellie? Are you back? I ignored him. I grabbed a few suits that I had given Ethan and handed them to Liam. These weren't for him. He couldn't wear these custom suits because he and Ethan had different body types. I just didn't want to give anything that I had put effort into to that man anymore. That's all. And a pair of men's leather shoes. Ellie, did you bring a man home? Ethan, this is outrageous. Sophia's voice was sharp. I sped up the packing. I didn't want to have any further contact with them. Liam, can you hold these cosmetics and things for me? At that moment, the baby in the stroller started crying. That's when Ethan finally found us. When he saw Liam holding all the suits that I had given him, he snapped. Ellie, what exactly do you mean? These things are mine. Why are you giving them away to someone else? I randomly picked up an unopened electric shaver, which I had intended to give Ethan for his birthday next week. But now there was no need. This is for you. It's brand new. Liam took it. Ethan immediately grabbed it. Didn't you say you were going to give this to me? Didn't you say that everything I choose is too tacky? Let Sophia choose for you. I then picked up a few bottles of perfume that Ethan had given me. I have said countless times that I don't like fruity perfumes, but he always says that he can't remember, and keeps giving them to me. As soon as he entered, I smelled the scent of Sophia's perfume. It was the same brand of perfume that Ethan always bought me. So it wasn't that he couldn't remember. It's that he didn't care. I threw them into the trash. Ellie, what do you mean? These are the birthday gifts I gave you. How can you say you don't want them? Because I don't like fruity perfume. I don't want them no matter who gave them to me. Ethan's face turned white. He looked at me but didn't know what to say. I packed a few clothes, picked up my baby, and was about to leave. But Ethan blocked the door. This is your home. Where do you think you're going? To someone else's home. Ethan tried to snatch the child away, leaving me behind. But Sophia suddenly clutched her chest and collapsed. Ethan, I feel terrible. Don't leave me. Ethan looked at Sophia with worry. I pushed him away and opened the door. Ellie. He chased after me for a few steps but was stopped by Sophia, who was rolling on the floor saying she was in pain all over. In the end, he chose to go back to her. The villa Liam booked wasn't far from Ethan's place, only a few streets away. So Ethan managed to find me. That day I had just woken up. As I was strolling outside the villa with the baby, Ethan appeared in front of me with bags of things. I bought some things for you and the baby. Oh, and some perfume. It's a woody scent, the kind you like. Oh, and I bought some baby formula for our son, little Sophia. It's the best. He rambled on, bringing things into the house. I glanced at them. I don't use this brand. You can take them away. But you always liked it when I bought it for you before? He even looked a little wronged. I just found it laughable. Did she like it when you bought it for Sophia? I never said I liked this brand. Ethan panicked and tried to reach out to me to explain. But I retreated to the glass door, keeping a distance from him. Also, our son isn't named Ethan Sophia, he's Liam. Didn't we agree that he would be named Ethan Sophia? And if it's a girl? He stopped talking then quickly said, I wasn't thinking. It's good that our son has your last name. When we have our second child. There won't be a second child. My uterus ruptured. The doctors said I'm not fit for a second pregnancy. Ethan stood frozen, then he started to apologize. He said that he saw Sophia covered in blood that day, and her situation seemed worse than mine. He thought I was only grazed by the truck. That's why he let the doctors take Sophia away first. You know, we both owe Sophia. If it wasn't for that accident, I should have married Sophia. So, I always felt guilty toward her and wanted to make it up to her. But I swear there is nothing else between us. The light from the matching watch he was wearing seemed a little dazzling as he spoke. I laughed scornfully. I don't owe her anything. What happened that day was an accident. I told you before if you didn't want to you could have left. I wouldn't have said a word. It was you who insisted on marrying me. In other words, if it wasn't for you, I would have married Liam. He looked at me and suddenly knelt in front of me. It was my fault. It was my fault, okay? Please don't contact Liam anymore. You're making me misunderstand. You guys were first loves. People. It's different for me than for you. I'm a man. People wouldn't say anything about me. But you're a woman. People will say you're not decent. I put my baby down and said lightly, then let's get a divorce. Then my indecency won't affect you. He still didn't give up. After a long time Liam arrived. I saw these at the supermarket today. They looked good, so. Liam stopped mid-sentence seeing Ethan. He quickly laughed and said, I didn't see you there. I didn't buy enough for 3 people. Liam, she's my wife. Can you just leave? Ethan, stop acting up. If your mind is this small, then clean it out with a Q-tip. I opened the door, let Liam in, then locked Ethan out. He sat outside for a whole night. When Liam was about to leave, he wanted to take Ethan with him. But he refused, thinking I would let him in. But I didn't. So he stayed out there all night. The next day when I opened the door he was crying, holding onto my legs. He even started blaming me, asking why I didn't love him like before. He said that he didn't do it on purpose. It was an emergency at the time, so he chose Sophia. He said indignantly, I was thinking that even if something happened to you I could die with you. We were connected by 4 families. But Sophia was an outsider. You understand me, right? I shook my head. I really didn't understand. You're the most important person to me. People always subconsciously ignore the people who are most important to them and end up hurting them. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. He lamented that he had sat outside for the entire night, yet I still didn't let him in. I smiled and asked, You were only outside for 1 night. How many times have you locked me out on purpose during these years of our marriage? Have you forgotten? He froze. Ever since we got married, because of that video, especially after Sophia tried to commit suicide on our wedding day, which caused our wedding and the video to be all over the internet and caused him to be ridiculed by everyone. In these years of marriage, he had deliberately tormented me countless times. He would be at home, yet refused to open the door for me. He would complain about my bad memory, that I never brought my keys and it was my fault. Later I changed to a digital lock. He changed the lock in the code and didn't tell me. He watched me struggle like my struggles somehow made his own troubles less awful. I know it was my fault. Ethan promised me a lot, saying that he would put me first from now on and would never contact Sophia. But right after he said that, Sophia called. The first time he hung up. The second time he hesitated and then hung up. The third time he said worriedly that he thought something might have happened to Sophia, so he should pick up. I nodded, letting him answer. As soon as he picked up, Sophia's voice came over. Ethan, my head hurts so bad. The pain medicine isn't working. Can you take me to the hospital? Ethan glanced at me and said, I can call you a taxi. But I want you to be with me. You know I don't have any family here. If you don't come with me. She cried sadly. Even I was moved. But I didn't respond to Ethan. I just let him in the house and allowed him to wash his face. When he saw the baby, he couldn't help but hold him and coo at him. Then Sophia called again. She was crying even more violently. Ethan put the baby down and prepared to leave. Don't come back after you walk out that door. He still pushed the door open without hesitation. I'm just going to check on her, I'll be right back. After he left, Liam's car arrived. I took the baby and some of my luggage, got in the car, and at the same time, a divorce agreement was sent to Ethan's email. This time I wasn't going to wait for him to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get a divorce. I would sue him directly. Liam took me back to the E family home. As soon as the door opened, my mother rushed towards me with a bunch of things for the baby. Mom, the baby can't eat spicy snacks yet. I'm not giving it to this child, I'm giving it to my child. My precious girl. If it wasn't for our family being targeted, you wouldn't have had to settle with that Shin boy. At this point my mother sobbed a little, then looked at Liam. It's your fault too. You didn't protect her. Liam didn't speak. No one had anticipated what had happened back then. And after all these years no one has been able to figure it out. The more you think about it, the more suspicious it all seems. I tilted my head, looking outside the door. When will Dad be back? My mother said, your dad went to talk to the Shen family. This marriage must end. But when my dad came back, he scolded everyone. Ethan refused to agree to a divorce, saying that he would die if we divorced. He even asked my dad to tell me to come home quickly. After seeing I had no desire to go home, Ethan took the initiative to come to my door. This was the first time he had come to our door since our wedding. He came in holding a bouquet of roses. I used to love them. But this time I threw them straight into the trash. Don't you love roses? Why did you throw them away? Stop doing this. I really know I was wrong, I really do. He grabbed my waist tightly. Let's not have any more kids. It's too scary. You and Liam will be my everything from now on. I don't like red roses. I only like champagne roses. After I said that, my dad came out of the kitchen. After being married for so many years, you don't even know what your own wife likes? I ignored him and went back to my room to continue working on my contracts. Without Ethan disturbing me, I had finished writing a novel. And I had signed a contract. The advance payment was considerable. It was at that time that I realized that Ethan had held me back. Actually, I wasn't useless. I wasn't the sinner who was ruining his life. Halfway through, Liam said that he had arrived. He bought something for me to take outside because it was heavy. When I walked into the living room, I saw Ethan sitting there like a lord. I thought that since the things were so heavy, I could ask him to come help. Come with me. When my dad heard this, he stuck his head out, thinking I was getting back together with Ethan. I shook my head and gave him a look, before leading Ethan towards the underground parking garage. Ethan was happy all the way. Ellie, when are you going to come home? I've redecorated the house, all according to your old preferences. Sophia also said that she's really sorry to you. She said she'll apologize to you in person when you go back, and that I'll stop contacting her. As he was saying all of this, he looked at me carefully, while I was focused on finding Liam's car. When we finally arrived, Liam told me to wait at the back of the car. So I stood there waiting for him to open it. The moment he opened the trunk, the entire trunk was filled with champagne roses, and 2 bottles of my favorite perfume. The E family's little princess signed her first contract. Of course, we have to celebrate properly. Liam got out of the car, holding a bouquet of exquisite champagne roses. At that moment, Ethan couldn't say a word. He stood there blankly as Liam handed me the flowers. Congratulations on signing your contract. Oh, and also. He returned to the car and took out a small cake. The cake wasn't big, but the second I saw it, I cried. It was from a small bakery I used to go to when I was a child. Then the owner moved to another city, and I never ate it again. After giving birth to Liam, I was stuck in the fear of the truck accident. I would have nightmares often. I especially dreamed that Ethan would leave me and walk towards Sophia. I dreamed that I was left behind. I didn't get in the ambulance. Both my child and I disappeared. So I had mentioned to him once that I really wanted to eat that small cake because eating that cake made me happy. He searched online with me for a long time but couldn't find the store. I thought I would never eat it again. I couldn't believe that it was now warm in my hands. It's just a cake. Ellie, come back with me. I'll get those top chefs to make it for you every day. He angrily knocked the small cake out of my hands. The second the cake shattered on the ground, my postpartum emotional breakdown completely exploded. Why did you knock my cake away? Get out of here. Get out. That was also the first time I saw Liam hit someone. Ethan clearly wasn't convinced after that punch. He got up to hit back. I stepped in front of Liam. Ethan, this marriage must end. Even if it kills me, I want a divorce. Ellie, don't tell me you want a divorce because of this man. I slapped him hard across the face. Is it because of him? You've been cheating on me for 2 years of our 3-year marriage. No matter what you feel for Sophia, you're still cheating. I've been wanting a divorce all this time. I sued you twice, but you wouldn't go to the Civil Affairs Bureau. You've been exhausting me. You've been saying you love me, but you keep putting me down. I didn't know why at first. Now I know. You just want to fight with others. Liam is better than you in every way. You can't beat him in these families, so you took me from him. Was that accident not an accident at all? I yelled. Ethan stared at me, his eyes red. It's just a cake. Is that so important? Or you're just using this cake as an excuse? You just love Liam. You want to get together with him. Bang! Liam kicked him. You left Ellie at the scene of the accident, causing her to almost die, along with her baby. She has been having nightmares for months. Do you even know what postpartum depression is? She has been saying she really wanted to eat this cake. I went out of my way to find the old baker who used to make it. The baker is old now. This might be the last piece of cake that can remind her of her childhood and make her happy. Liam picked me up. He turned around and said to Ethan, I never wanted to give her up to you. And I never will now. Ethan followed us frantically. No, Ellie, I really didn't know. I really didn't know. I didn't know you were suffering from postpartum depression. After the cake broke, Ethan disappeared. I cried for 3 days at home. My parents and Liam spent 3 days researching how to make the old-style small cake. When I saw the awkwardly shaped cakes in front of me, I couldn't help but smile. We really did our best, honey. Please don't cry. My mother hugged me with sympathy. I smiled at her. Liam whispered, Princess, we can't make cakes, but we can do this. They stepped aside, revealing a wall of photos and things from my childhood. At that moment, I really felt happy. If it wasn't for Ethan knocking on the door later. I opened the door and he held out the cake to me. I searched for it for so long. Can you forgive me? Looking at the cake, all my resentment disappeared. It wasn't that I had seen the light, but that I no longer had any love for Ethan. I smiled and picked an almond from the top of the cake and said, I'm allergic to almonds. It's okay. Thank you for your kindness. I've already filed a lawsuit with the court. If you really want what's best for me, just agree to it. I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I didn't know. I smiled. You don't need to explain anymore. I know. There are many things about me you don't know. You never have from the very beginning. I used to have the luxury of thinking that maybe this accident would bring me a good partner. But when it turned out not to be the case, I stubbornly persisted for a long time. Now I understand. People who love you will love you no matter what. They will always know all your needs. Those who don't love you will always be like that. I looked at Ethan. Let's get a divorce. I deserve better, and you? I don't want to force it anymore. Okay. In the presence of both our parents, I signed the divorce agreement with Ethan and finally got the divorce certificate. The moment we stepped out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, Ethan smiled self-deprecatingly. I didn't know what he was laughing about. I just said politely, goodbye forever. Then I took my child, followed by my parents and Liam, and went overseas for a full year. Because my postpartum depression was severe. If I didn't relax, something bad would happen. And the doctor recommended that I stay away from the people and things that had brought me pain. So I completely blocked Ethan. After a year, I was in much better shape. I also got married to Liam abroad. But when I returned home, I was stopped by reporters at the airport. What do you think about your ex-husband's deliberate act of creating the kidnapping case and the scandals surrounding your family? Ex-husband? Kidnapping case? I was confused. It was Liam who protected me and got me away from the crowd. Later, I learned the truth. The kidnapping case had been orchestrated by Ethan because Liam had taken away a project from him, so he turned his attention to me. He kidnapped me, then forced me to film the video with him. After I left, someone reported Ethan. That person was Sophia. Ethan was sent to prison. I went to see him once. I knew you would come to see me, Ellie. I have to tell you the truth. I listened. He said word by word. I have secretly loved you for many years, but you never noticed me. That's why I resorted to such means. But after marrying you, I realized that you were just average, not as amazing as Liam had said. I laughed and said, that's because Liam truly loves me. So I am perfect in his eyes. You were just trying to take something that was not yours. As I was leaving, I happened to see Sophia being let in. An insider told me that Sophia had been involved in the whole scheme, and they had plotted the whole thing together. When Ethan got arrested, he confessed to her involvement. But Liam never chose her. You never told me about this? Liam held our child and said, she came to ask me if I wanted to marry her to get revenge on you. I thought about why I should get revenge on you. I want you to be happy more than anyone in this world. I hugged Liam tightly. He said with a smile, I'm glad we didn't miss out on each other. The end.